Catherine first met James in a dimly lit corridor at Massachusetts General Hospital during her residency, just after her night shift. While she was checking patient charts with an exhausted expression, James offered her a warm cup of coffee. That simple act of kindness would change both their lives forever. James was well regarded among his hospital colleagues. Not only was he skilled, but his gentle approach with patients earned everyone's trust. Catherine saw in him the kind of doctor she aspired to be. Gradually, they supported each other through the challenging years of residency. Patricia Gray's first words upon hearing about the engagement were impossible. For her, a prominent figure in Boston's social scene living in the upscale Beacon Hill neighborhood, Catherine, who had graduated medical school on scholarships and late-night jobs, wasn't a suitable match for her son. James, that girl has no class. She lives like a charity worker despite being a doctor. She'll damage your future. Patricia would gossip about Catherine to her friends during their elegant Sunday brunches. While sipping tea at America's oldest country club, she'd endlessly express her dissatisfaction with her son's choice of bride. Even the engagement party preparations were kept minimal. Catherine's parents weren't invited, and the venue was filled with Patricia's friends instead. At the party held in a historic Back Bay hotel, Catherine was treated like an outsider. Patricia's cold treatment continued afterward. At family gatherings, Catherine was seated at the same table as the servants and excluded from conversations. At Thanksgiving dinner, she was deliberately seated at the children's table, and sometimes she wasn't even invited to Christmas parties. Yet Catherine maintained a quiet smile through it all. Rachel, her sister-in-law, was even more blatant. As an Instagram influencer with 100,000 followers, she would repeatedly make posts subtly criticizing Catherine's modest attire while flaunting her luxury brands. "My sister-in-law's wearing what looks like second-hand clothes again. Where does her doctor's salary go? I guess you can't develop good taste without money." Rachel basked in superiority every time these posts received likes. Living at home with only 2 social media posts per week as her job, she couldn't understand Catherine's daily struggles. Rachel, who maintained a lavish lifestyle through sponsored content for luxury brands, looked down on her sister-in-law's modest living. When Rachel's engagement to David Morrison was announced, her arrogance reached new heights. Marriage to a sharp Goldman Sachs investment banker would elevate her status even further. She constantly posted on social media, showing off her 6-carat Tiffany diamond engagement ring. The engagement party was held at the Ritz-Carlton Boston, the city's most prestigious hotel. Catherine arrived in her usual navy Brooks Brothers suit. Rachel deliberately excluded her from photos, posting only pictures with select guests on social media. No one paid attention to Catherine quietly sipping champagne in a corner of the venue. The night before the wedding, Catherine's phone rang with a call from Patricia. She had just finished her night shift at the hospital. "Make sure you dress appropriately tomorrow. David's father is a former UN ambassador. Your usual attire would be an embarrassment to the family. Oh, and I heard James won't be coming. How lonely that must be for you." Catherine could hear the malicious smile in Patricia's voice through the receiver. She sighed deeply and quietly hung up. She had already decided to wear her usual outfit tomorrow. Her husband James was away at a medical conference. However, she was determined to attend the wedding alone. Looking at the Boston nightscape through her window, Catherine contemplated tomorrow's wedding. In the quiet night illuminated by street lights, she reflected on her secrets. No one knew about her humanitarian award or her relief work in Syria. She had endured her mother-in-law and sister-in-law's treatment all this time. But tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow would be the day when all truths would come to light. The next morning in Boston dawned bright and clear. Luxury cars kept arriving at the Ritz-Carlton Boston's main entrance, with elegantly dressed guests stepping out. Since its establishment in 1927, this hotel had reigned as the social hub of Boston's upper class. Today, that tradition would continue. Catherine quietly stepped out of her taxi. She wore her usual navy Brooks Brothers dress with a single pearl necklace inherited from her mother. Though modest, her dignified presence stood out among the guests dressed in luxury brands. "Oh my, Catherine. A taxi?" Patricia wrinkled her nose at the hotel entrance. She was wrapped in a custom Dior dress, lavishly adorned with Harry Winston jewelry. Beside her, Rachel tilted her head like a swan in her Vera Wang wedding dress. "Mother, my sister-in-law really has no sense. And on my special day too." Rachel flashed a malicious smile as her friends helped her with final makeup touches using a stainless steel compact mirror. The scene was already being posted to Instagram stories. Catherine said nothing, simply nodding quietly as she headed toward the ceremony venue. Entering the banquet hall, she was struck by the chandelier's brilliance. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, making the crystal chandeliers cast rainbow-colored light. Round tables that could seat 300 distinguished guests were arranged neatly. "Oh, Catherine. Your seat is over there." Patricia pointed to a distant corner table. It was clearly meant for servants and unfamiliar distant relatives. She had been intentionally separated from where family members should normally be seated near the front. "Yes, I understand." Catherine calmly walked to her assigned seat. Along the way, several waiters watched her with concerned expressions. They had overheard Patricia and Rachel's malicious conversations during last night's preparations. When she reached her seat, Catherine noticed what was placed before her. It was a silver dog bowl with a Tiffany stamp, like those sold in luxury pet shops. Inside was Origen, the highest-grade dog food, arranged as if it were a course meal. "Is this sufficient?" Patricia approached with a smile full of superiority. Behind her, Rachel was trying to suppress her giggles. "Please enjoy your meal." Rachel's mockery caused murmurs from the surrounding tables. Even among guests well-versed in upper-class etiquette, there was a sense that this insult had gone too far. But Catherine just smiled quietly. There was something mysteriously dignified about her expression. She gracefully spread her napkin across her lap and began to act as if nothing had happened. Her attitude momentarily confused Patricia and Rachel. The angry or humiliated expression they had expected was nowhere to be seen. As the reception began and classical music played, the appetizer of lobster bisque was served. Only Catherine's table still had the dog bowl in place. Yet she sat gracefully as if this were perfectly normal. "Madam, I apologize. I'll bring you proper dinnerware right away." Catherine gave a gentle smile to the concerned head waiter who had rushed over. "Thank you, but this is fine." There was a strange confidence in her voice, as if this humiliating situation was actually going according to her plan. The reception proceeded solemnly. The groom, David occasionally glanced worriedly in Catherine's direction. His father, former UN Ambassador Joseph Morrison, seemed to sense something as he watched Patricia and Rachel with stern eyes. "It's about time for the speeches," Catherine murmured quietly just as the prime rib main course was being served. Her expression held a certainty that hadn't been there before. The moment David stood up to approach the microphone, Patricia and Rachel's expressions changed. It wasn't a good change, especially for the mother-in-law, who seemed to realize something as the blood drained from her face. David stood before the microphone in his navy tuxedo. His usually gentle expression held a certain dignity and determination. All 300 guests' eyes turned to him at once. His voice resonated under the crystal chandeliers. "Thank you all for gathering here today for our wedding. On this special day, I have something I'd like to share with everyone." Patricia's face lit up with expectation, wondering what heartwarming speech her son's best friend would give. Rachel too was checking her selfie angle, preparing to record the scene. In February 2023, a hospital in Aleppo, Syria was bombed. The sudden turn silenced the venue. Guests began to murmur, wondering why such a heavy topic was being brought up at a glamorous wedding. That day, many casualties were being brought to the hospital. The bombing caused a fire that engulfed the building, leaving patients trapped in a desperate situation. David paused for a moment and took a deep breath. But there was one doctor there. She repeatedly ran into the burning building, risking her own life. She kept rescuing patients, one after another. Catherine quietly closed her eyes. The memories of that day came back vividly. That doctor saved 32 lives. And just after rescuing the last patient, the building collapsed. The atmosphere in the venue began to change. Particularly, the UN officials and humanitarian organization representatives seated in the front were leaning forward, intensely engaged in the story. "That doctor's name is Catherine Gray. Yes, the person sitting here now with a dog bowl placed before her." The shocking revelation took the venue's breath away. The blood drained from Patricia's face. Rachel dropped her phone. Catherine has saved thousands of lives as a leader with Doctors Without Borders. She is the recipient of the 2024 Humanitarian Contribution Award and has received special recognition from the UN Human Rights Commission. David's father, Joseph Morrison, quietly stood up. His presence as a former UN ambassador commanded the entire venue. "I am well aware of Dr. Catherine Gray's achievements. Her dedicated work is highly regarded in the international community. And today, I have witnessed with my own eyes the treatment she has received here." Joseph's voice carried barely contained anger. The social elite unanimously turned disapproving eyes toward Patricia and Rachel. "Mother, Rachel," David's voice resonated through the venue again. "You never understood who Catherine truly is. Most of her $350,000 annual income goes to medical aid activities. Her modest lifestyle is her belief and her pride." The president of the Boston Ladies Club stood up in the front row. "Patricia, your actions have severely damaged our dignity. We may need to reconsider your club membership." At these words, Patricia's face turned pale. She could feel the social position she had built over 30 years crumbling with an almost audible sound. Rachel was desperately operating her phone. Critical comments were already flooding her Instagram, and sponsorship contracts with luxury brands were beginning to send cancellation notices. And now, I must announce the most important thing. David's voice became even more solemn. I am canceling my marriage to a family that has continued to insult such an honorable person. At that moment, Rachel let out a scream. She collapsed on the spot in her pure white wedding dress. Patricia too sank into her chair as if losing all support. David, wait. There's a reason for. Rachel's desperate voice no longer moved anyone's heart. New murmurs began among the guests. Without doubt, a new scandal would be added to Boston's social scene. Then, a quiet voice resonated through the venue. David, may I have a moment? Catherine stood up. Her presence was dignified, as if she were a different person. The strength that hadn't wavered even with a dog bowl before her now touched everyone's hearts. Indeed, the actions of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law are unforgivable. However, in the world I face daily, much more serious hatred and conflict claim many lives. Catherine's voice permeated the venue like clear water. What we need is to break the chain of hatred. Even at this moment, somewhere in the world, someone needs help. Can we afford to waste time on hatred when that's the case? David's father nodded deeply at these words. As a former UN ambassador, he understood their weight better than anyone. If you both sincerely apologize and promise to change from now on, I have no objection to continuing this wedding. Catherine's unexpected words silenced the venue again. Patricia and Rachel stared at her with unbelieving expressions. However, there is one condition, Catherine continued with a resolute expression. From now on, I want us to strive to understand and respect each other as a true family. Above all, please stop judging people solely by their social status and appearance. A deep silence dominated the venue. In that silence, something began to move greatly in Patricia and Rachel's hearts. The mask called pride was slowly peeling away. The silence was broken by loud applause from the venue. Everyone was touched by Catherine's tolerance and strength. Rachel stood up on trembling legs, clutching the hem of her pure white wedding dress. Large tears fell from her eyes. Not caring that her perfect makeup was running, she knelt before Catherine and bowed deeply. I am truly sorry. Her voice was filled with genuine remorse, without a trace of her former arrogance. The mask she had worn, wrapped in luxury brands and performing a perfect life on social media, was now completely falling away. Patricia too stood up unsteadily. Her Hermes handbag, which she always carried proudly, hung limply in her hand. Catherine. I too. Her voice caught. All her social standing built over years, her reputation as a glamorous charity party hostess, had lost all meaning. Now before her stood a real philanthropist, a true humanitarian. To think that someone so wonderful was the person I rejected as my son's partner. Patricia knelt beside Rachel and bowed deeply as well. It was a sincere gesture, without pretense, that no one had ever seen before. David quietly approached the two. His expression held a slight warmth within its sternness. Mother, Rachel. I have 3 conditions, he began in a clear tone. First, publish official apologies to Catherine on social media and in newspapers. Second, always attend family gatherings and make sincere efforts to repair relationships. And third. David paused momentarily, looking intently into their eyes. Both of you must participate in Doctors Without Borders volunteer activities once a month. I want you to understand firsthand the suffering of people and the preciousness of life." Patricia and Rachel answered yes, in trembling voices. Their voices held a humility never heard before. In a corner of the venue, a waiter quietly wiped away tears. He had witnessed Patricia and others preparing the dog bowl last night. He was touched by this unexpected turn of events that he couldn't have imagined then. David's father, Joseph Morrison, approached the two. Within his dignified bearing as a former UN ambassador, there was a warm compassion. "Patricia, Rachel. Everyone makes mistakes. But the true mark of upper class is having the courage to acknowledge those mistakes and sincerely apologize." These words drew light applause from the venue. Even the Boston Ladies Club president nodded slightly. Catherine slowly approached the two. Her steps carried their usual dignified beauty. It was just a few meters from the seat with the dog bowl, but in that short distance, this family's future was about to change greatly. "Mother, Rachel," Catherine gently placed her hands on their shoulders. "As a doctor, I have seen many people's suffering. And I learned that what can ease that suffering is not hatred, but understanding and compassion." Her voice permeated the venue like clear water. "From now on, I hope we can walk together as a true family. We each have our own strengths. Let's build a relationship where we can recognize and elevate those strengths together." New tears flowed from Patricia and Rachel's eyes. They were tears of regret and apology, but also tears of hope for a new beginning. David quietly took Rachel's hand. "May we continue with the wedding?" Catherine nodded with a gentle smile at this question. Loud applause erupted from the venue. It wasn't just celebratory applause, but warm applause celebrating the growth of human hearts and true reconciliation. The early summer sunlight again poured down on Boston. A year had passed since that wedding, and the cityscape maintained its unchanging elegance. However, in the hearts of the Gray family members, great changes had occurred. The day after the wedding, Rachel deleted her Instagram account with its 100,000 followers. Her final post was a heartfelt apology to Catherine. "For years, I was trapped in the false image of social media. But my sister Catherine taught me what true strength and beauty are. From now on, I want to become someone who can contribute to people through real actions." That post received thousands of comments. While there were critical voices, there were also many words of encouragement from people touched by her honest confession. Patricia too had undergone great changes. Though she had lost her position as queen of social circles and invitations to charity parties had drastically decreased, her expression was rather serene. "For the first time in my life, I've been able to face my true self," she confided to Catherine in the Massachusetts General Hospital cafeteria. The monthly family counseling sessions suggested by David had gradually unraveled her heart. "I've always lived caring only about others' eyes. But seeing your way of life, I think I finally understand what's truly important." Catherine smiled gently at her mother-in-law's words. She continued her work at the hospital and with Doctors Without Borders, maintaining her modest lifestyle. But now, she had family who took pride in her way of life. Rachel and David kept their promise, participating in medical support volunteer activities once a month. Though hesitant at first, they gradually began to find deep meaning in their work. Rachel's transformation was particularly remarkable. The former Instagram influencer now works as a coordinator for refugee support projects. David felt a new love for her in this role. "I want to become someone who can change people's lives, just like my sister," Rachel would say, her eyes showing sincere light. There was no trace of her former arrogance anywhere. Patricia offered a room in her Beacon Hill mansion as an office for medical support organizations. Every Thursday, support supplies are sorted there. At first, some neighborhood ladies whispered, "My, how Patricia has fallen." But now, more people are gradually joining the activities. "A true lady is one who can contribute to society," Patricia tells new supporters. Her words carry weight and conviction that would have been unimaginable a year ago. James came to understand and support his wife's activities more deeply. Whenever he can take time off, he accompanies her on medical support missions. His parents too have come to show deep respect for Catherine's way of life. David's father, Joseph Morrison, introduced Catherine's activities in a UN lecture. His words, "True humanitarian aid springs not from honor or rewards, but from pure sense of mission," touched many hearts. On the last Sunday of every month, the Gray family holds a family meeting. Unlike the former lavish dinner parties, they share modest but heartfelt meals while discussing their thoughts. Though there are sometimes differences of opinion, the process of overcoming them has deepened family bonds. Catherine still sometimes remembers that wedding day. The feeling of sitting at the table with the dog bowl. However, those memories are no longer bitter. Rather, they've become precious memories marking the family's new beginning. Everyone has the potential to change, she believes. The numerous miracles she's witnessed in medical settings support this conviction. Perhaps the changes happening in the Gray family now are another such miracle. The sun sets beautifully over Boston. The light seemed to gently illuminate this past year's journey. And in that light, the Gray family was about to take new steps forward. Though perhaps not perfect, they were moving forward as a real family, supported by genuine love and understanding.